So my friend currently has a boyfriend, right? And I personally and most of our friends don't think he's a good guy. Now, one thing I do with my friends when they're about to go on a long, have a long conversation with something important to them, I ask them one of two things. Are you trying to vent to me or do you want advice from me? Because, sometimes people will try to give advice when you don't really want to hear that in the moment. You're just trying to talk. So I ask that question just so we could be on the same page. Now, typically, she'll say that she wants advice. So she'll give me the conversation. We'll have a conversation. She'll talk to me about what happened, like what they're going through, what he did, whatever. And me wanting to be a good friend, I'll listen and try to give her advice as best that I can. Here's where the issue is, though. Now, I'm not gonna lie. So typically my advice rounded about to you need to leave him. Like, you really, really need to leave him. I kind of got tired of my repeating myself because I can only say the same thing so many different ways. Like, I clearly am trying to tell you to leave him because you deserve better. And as your friend, I want better for you. I also want to reiterate, I have been trying for 9 months to get through to her. But she basically got mad and she was like, well, I just need advice because I just want him to change. Like, I just need him to change and do all these things or whatever. And I told her, why would he? Why would he put in that effort when he knows he doesn't have to?
I love that story, and it is a perfect example of what being a really good friend looks like. I'm attaching the whole story and the link to it. Go watch the whole thing. It's great. I have so much to say about this. The sooner we start to look at relationships as an addiction, the better off we'll be. Not everybody, but those of us who are like chronic codependents or just somewhere on the when you it's an addiction, y'all. It's an addiction. And so as someone who's been on both sides of addiction and different kinds of addictions too, my codependency, the way I behaved with relationships was identical in terms of the obsession and the inability to just quit, just stop, just go no contact, just block, just dump him, just leave, all that stuff. I could not do it. I was addicted. I there's so many parallels. Like, this person that I was chronically codependent with, I was literally addicted to this man, and he was awful. And just like, a drug or alcohol, he was going to kill me. He was going to kill me. But I couldn't leave it alone, right? And so when I started to draw those parallels, I started to understand how to handle friends or people that I know who I care about, whether it's friends or families or whatever, when they are in that state, how to handle them. Because I handle it the same way I would an addiction. Like, let's just draw a parallel here. If I had a friend, and I've had this happen before, who was like a chronic alcoholic and were, drinking themselves to death and getting worse. First of all, again, I've been on both sides of this. I've been the person that has had people have to go get therapy because they're so worried about me. And I have to live with that, knowing that my sickness put other people through that. I have to forgive myself, but I also have to understand how hard that was for them, and that if they had to cut me off, they had to cut me off for their own self-preservation or whatever, because enabling addicts gets them killed. Like in the, what is the saying? Like, that you love them to death, right? That if it's an alcoholic and you keep bailing them out, you keep paying, calling in and covering for them, if you keep giving them money, if you keep enabling their addiction, they will die. Most likely they will die. And it's not your fault, but but it's not helping. It's not helping. I know it feels like it's helping, but it's not helping, right? And so when I was in that state of being addicted to this man, and I just don't know how any other way, I don't know if codependency is technically an addiction, but I'm telling you, as somebody who I could not stop thinking about this person. I could not just block him. He literally almost unalived me. He raped me. He made my life miserable, but I was so caught up in the codependency part, the martyrdom part, the wanting to feel needed, the wanting, if I can just change this man, I will have finally healed all those wounds from the past. You can't change men. You can't change anybody, right? But this need to change them, it's controlling, first of all. It's also really condescending, right? Like, I'm not their parent. I'm not here to make them grow and learn. Like I'm not their God. I'm not their hero. I'm not any of that stuff. But feeling like I am is pretty empowering. Pretty empowering, right? Because I get to hate them, but also feeling good, right? Like, look what I've done for you. Look what I've sacrificed for you. You know, being a victim of something sucks, but understanding, like, why the hell I kept putting up with so much stuff besides all of the other things, right? There's so much, I mean, like, you know, all of the grooming and all of all the things that they do to kind of like get you like narcissists and all the whatever. But I could not change this man, and I tried so hard. Oh, I'll just go get him his social security card. I'll just, you know, whatever. I'll teach him how to do this. I'm done being a teacher. I don't want to teach. Chronic codependents oftentimes fall into teaching, right? And I was a teacher for a while. I was like, yep, that makes sense. That's why part of my healing is I am not here to teach anyone who doesn't want to learn. I'm not here to teach men how to treat women better, especially if they don't want to change. Why would I waste my time and energy, right? Like, not my business. Not my business. So the best thing that any friend did for me when I was addicted to that man, and I've been obsessed with a few, but this man was like next level. Next level. I felt like physically addicted to him. And on some level, I think I was, because when your cortisol levels are so high from just like being on edge all the time and worrying, and like the man blew up my phone constantly all the time, to go from that to silence and no like spikes and no crisis all the time. Like, what do we do with that? Like, I really feel like I was a little bit physically addicted to this, right? Like, because peace is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable after that. And the best thing any of my friends did was to let me know that they were going to help me get out, but they were not going to be like the banker. Like, they're not like a savings account where I just show up and I dump, like, vomit or just dump all this crap into them. That's not a relationship. That's not fair. That reminded me of when my dad would get drunk and tell me the same story every single night that I stayed over there. Get drunk and cry, and it's almost like he was reading a script. And I remember being like, why am I even here? You know, and it took my sister being like, he doesn't even remember these conversations. Why do you stay up and listen to that? And I'm like, good point. Like, if I actually went to bed, he'd probably just watch TV. But because I'm there, he gets to relive all that, cry about it, feel like he's working on it because he's talking about it. But he's not. He might as well be talking to the wall. I'm not here. I feel invisible. I feel like you were having a one-sided relationship, a one-sided conversation. So when you are the friend listening to someone who just wants to complain, now, again, we all need to just do that some. But if that's all that friend is doing, and they ask for advice, but they never take it. You know, Anthony actually was the one who pointed this out, because I was struggling with this several years ago. And he was like, yeah, my dad once told me that, you know, if someone asks for help, but they don't respect the person helping them, then like, what was it? Oh my God. It was actually really good. I'm ruining this quote. But it was something like, what it made me realize is like, respect the help that you're asking for, right? Like, if I ask somebody all the time for advice, and their advice is good advice, but I refuse to take it, like, they don't have to keep giving me advice, because clearly I don't respect it. Clearly I don't care. Clearly I'm not listening to it. Clearly I'm just want them to validate me. And when they're not, I'm like, yeah, okay, shut up. The same way if a friend came to me and they're an alcoholic and I'm like, sounds like you need to stop drinking, and they're like, yeah, whatever. But I can just manage it. I'm like, you go do that. Don't talk about it with me. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be your friend, But I'm not going to listen to you talk about this thing endlessly and dominate all of our conversations complaining about this person, dumping all this stuff onto me, but not caring what I have to say, not listening to what I have to say. And usually, because again, I've been on both sides of this, usually when someone is in a crisis, an addiction to a substance or a person, a lot of times that person is so wrapped up in their own drama because it's life-threatening. Addictions are life-threatening. They're so wrapped up in their stuff. They oftentimes, when they're in that state, they make terrible friends, right? And if they and they don't even think to ask you, well, how was your day? What's going on with you? And if they do ask you, they're so, I'm telling you, like addiction is so overwhelming that, I used to have, in eating disorder, I'm afraid I can't say it. I hate that you can't even say that on these dumb platforms. I was chronically bulimic for a long time. And so I think about it with that. When I think about my relationship stuff, it was the same thing, right? When I was in my insanity and all I could think about was food and controlling food and right? Because I needed an escape instead of dealing with what's actually happening, right? It's a lot easier to worry about food and calories and weight and all this crap than to actually be like, wow, I feel hurt. And I remember when I was wrapped up, if I go to a meal with someone and I'm just like, oh my God, how many calories? I may ask someone a question, but I'm not listening because this voice is too loud. I'm not there. And so when you're on the receiving end of that, this person asks you for advice and they don't even listen to it. They don't care. What they want you to do is to validate their delusion, co-sign the lies they tell themselves. Oh, your drinking's not a problem. Keep doing it. You'll be fine. They actually don't really want you to say that, but the addiction part does. And so one of the best things I've ever done is surround myself with truth tellers. Truth tellers who will tell me what I don't want to hear in a loving, thoughtful way, but they will not co-sign the lies I tell myself. They will not enable that crap. They give me so much grace too, by the way. And the delivery is always very thoughtful. But it's direct, and it's exactly what I need to hear. What I don't need is people telling me, yeah, he'll change. Just keep doing what you're doing. Right? And none of my friends would do that. They patiently sat by and watched and were very careful how they handled that. At first, I was just like, whatever. I didn't even give him a name. I called him Pizza Guy. And they're just like, don't you think it's funny you don't even call him by his first name? You call him Pizza Guy? I mean, are you really serious about this person? He doesn't even have a name. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't give a crap. Whatever. They watched me go from just hooking up with Pizza Guy to in an abusive relationship I didn't know how to get out of. Right? So they watched the slow motion nightmare happen and they actually handled it really well. And they got to a point one by one in their own time where they're like, I'd be like, oh my God, you won't believe what happened today. And they'd just be like, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing that thing. I would be so annoyed if I was them right now. Now, it did feel very isolating, but they never made me feel alone. They never made me feel like I had nowhere to go once I was ready to leave. But if that person is not ready to leave, there's not much you can do. If that person is not ready to give up that deadly addiction, you can say, I'm here for you, man. I'm here for you. But I don't want to talk about what happened last night while you're drunk. You know what I mean? I'm not going to give you money. And that's my own boundary. It's not about controlling them or making them change. It's this is what I'm not willing to do is listen to your crap. Or, I'm not going to phrase it like that. And so, and Liz really taught me how to do this, right? Know when to be like, One of the most important changes that happened in my life when I finally faced this codependency, this people pleaser, this need to change a man, literally my entire happiness and well-being hinging on another person. When I really took a look at that and how that is really the root of most of my problems and really started working hard on that. And, stop dating for a while because I knew I was too codependent to try to date again, right? And just focus on my healing. And then practice in my relationships how to not be codependent and how to not be a people pleaser and how to not just be like, do stuff I don't want to do or can't do. And, it's that, working on that changed my life, right? And if I had not started working on that, I would, I've dealt with like other very self-destructive behavior, but my codependency is what has led me closer to death than anything else. My codependency. That was a very frightening realization, that all those times that I almost ruptured my esophagus, all those times that I've been climbing in really literally life-threatening situations because of my jobs and all that crap, like all my outdoor adventure jobs, the closest I've ever come to death was dating a man as a codependent person. And then staying with that man as a codependent person. And then once I left, really wishing I could be back with him, even though I hated his guts because I was so addicted to him. And then I started thinking about all the times I've put myself in danger, right? How many times have I not wanted to ride in a car with a man because he seemed dangerous or he was too drunk, and I got in that car anyway. When I start to look back on my life of all the times I've been in danger, all the times I've been stalked, all the times I've had creepy, like predatory, all of those times I went into a trauma response or fawning response, right? Like I'm not being like, like I'm looking back with empathy and understanding of like a lot of this was just like, cycle of violence playing out again and again. But at the root, but that comes out in codependency. Oh, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want him to feel bad. I want him to like me. I need him to like me, right? I'm telling you, I really don't think we take relationship addiction. And again, I'm not saying it's a physical addiction, but my experience with being like obsessed with another person in terms of like, is he okay? How does he feel? What does he need? I didn't even know how, I was literally dying, had throat infections, like my nervous system was out of whack. I was literally felt like he could unalive me at any moment, but I needed to be needed, to be important, to change him. Like, maybe I'm not even using the right language with this. I'm not a therapist, but I just call it codependency because I don't know. All I know is that has led me closer to death than anything else I've done. And I used to, drink, smoke, do a lot of, I literally went to kid jail for wrongs, right? Like kid jail. I have been self-destructive for most of my life. Not most of it, but a lot. Like my youth, my early 20s, whatever. The most dangerous thing I've ever done is get into a codependent relationship with a man. And the most dangerous thing I've ever done in my life is trust men. Because I didn't know how to center myself and my feelings. Everything hinged on how they feel, their shame, their anger, their little list. Everything's about them, right? And so I know this is a really long-winded way to say this, but if you really care about a friend who's in one of these relationships, unless they're just terrible to you, it's not about cutting them off. It's being like, I'm not going to participate in this. I don't feel right doing this, and it's also exhausting me, and it's making me resent you because all you do is talk about this person and you don't even listen to my advice. And that's fine. I understand that you're not ready to leave, but you're not asking me about myself. You don't have time for me because you're caught up in this chaos, right? I'm here for you, but I will not co-sign this lie that you're telling yourself. I will not pretend like I like this person. I will be civil. Maybe, depending, this is a very nuanced conversation. But in my experience with so many addicts in my life, enabling them and their lies and their delusion is the worst thing I can do for them, right? And so pretending like I'm okay with this dynamic as a friend who's just going to listen to you talk about how awful this relationship is and pretend like I am okay with it. No, I'm here for you, but I'm not here to co-sign the lie that you're telling yourself about this person. And I'm going to be here for you when and if you're ready to leave.